AHOY, SWABS, Captain Jeff the Pirate here, at your disservice. Welcome to Captain Jeff Reviews and Questions Adventure Time. It came back with a full force assault this week in July. We had 5 episodes of Adventure Time back to back. It was great. Good seeing the Adventure Time return to us. So I'm going to be trying to review all 5 episodes in one shot. There might be a wee bit of spoilery stuff here, so if you're like new to Adventure Time, or if you haven't seen these episodes yet, watch with caution. Also, we'll put like a huge spoiler thing at the end, so we'll put something on the screen that probably says, turn off the sound until blah blah blah. Okay, here we go. The first episode was called Abstract. This episode takes place, I think, immediately after the end of the events of The Elements special that we had. Jake is now in his new farm, thanks to the effects of either the elements or LSP or both. We see he's the creature we first saw from the episode Joshua and Margaret Investigations. He now has 5 eyes, he's blue, he's big, and he's getting new powers. This episode was kind of a, I'd say, philosophical and exploratory episode. Jake says, oh, he just looks different, but deep down he's still the same old Jake. Everyone's kind of freaked out by him, but then he speaks with Dirt Beer Guy, who is pretty much essentially a zombie. Dirt Beer Guy is accepting him at first, but then he's like, wait, you're Jake? Oh dear. Yeah, again, Dirt Beer Guy, I think I said, it's just weird how he's one of the few competent people in the Candy Kingdom, and it was surprising how Bubblegum didn't bring him back, but how he came back on his own. Even Lady Rainicorn, she's actually accepting of Jake, she's alright with him, and she even tries to turn him back into the color yellow, which for some reason doesn't work. Anyway, Jake then has a weird dream, and it's weird. The visual style goes really weird. We get this old architecture and stuff. It looks like a painting in some spots, like some tapestry. And we see the creature is from the olden times. I'm wondering, based on how this thing has the 5 eyeballs, I'm thinking if this is going to be... I'm wondering if this is a side effect from when Orgalorg first showed up. Did he bring it with him, or was his presence here what inspired it? Or was it some other effect from pre or during the Mushroom War? Anyway, Jake has this weird dream and goes to see his brother Jermaine, who's now doing abstract painting. And we get introduced to a new character, which is guarding Jermaine's studio. But how do we find the studio? It's all thanks to James's. Remember James? Oh, he's back. We get him for this episode. It's really great. And James is another representation of how he looks different, but his personality is still kind of the same. It's only changed a little bit from the first episode to the multi-James episode to this one. So, yeah. And then we see Bryce, who we haven't seen since the episode Jermaine. Jermaine himself helps Jake come to terms with how you can be different, but still the same, or vice versa. And Jake was kind of in some form of denial. And by coming to terms with this, he reverts back to looking like his old self. So, yeah, I can't tell if this is genetics, it'd be like a recessive trait or a dominant trait. Can't tell if it's magic, the effect from the creature, or like I said, the elements and then the lumpy space elements that negate other stuff. It was an alright episode. I liked several parts of it, but the theme kind of was So I'd be giving it 1 thumb up. The next episode was Ketchup. Oh boy, I like this episode. This episode, it starts off with Marceline. And then we get BMO, who says, I have just learned that there be vampires and I've come to fight them. I am that guy. According to Marceline, the Stakes saga happened 6 months ago. So BMO, this episode shows how BMO has some really bad timing. I think he needs an upgrade or something. Anyway, Marceline says she's found this hard drive and she can't access it and she needs BMO's help. So while he's getting it formatted, he tells her about the adventure they had in the islands. The visual style for his story, it changes from what is typically seen, and okay, here's a few interesting things pointed out. The visual style is different. BMO says they were gone 100 days, though I'm highly doubtful that was that long. Again, BMO's passage of time is called into question. Let's see. Also in the flashback, we don't see Susan Strong whatsoever. We just see him, Jake, and Finn. Oh, and we see a giant blue jay that's going, whoa! Yeah, so now I've heard on Facebook they were going to do a comic book crossover between regular show and Adventure Time. But seriously, this, I mean, it's like, ugh. If you have to cross over Adventure Time with something, come on, Steven Universe. It's the blatantly obvious one for the crying out loud people. Alright, so So he tells the story and it's very BMO-esque. So then he asks how things with Marceline happened while they were gone. And Marcy, she does like a puppet show, and the visual style changes again also, and it's interesting. We get a little peek of what happened to Ooh while Finn and Jake and BMO were gone. Oh, and Susan, yeah. We see how everything was going normal. We see the patient St. Pim. And we see the curse that was affecting the lad side. All of Ooh. And we see how Marceline was able to fight it off for a little bit. And it's interesting. We actually get some insight. I mean, I was hoping they would give us explanation of what happened to the land of Ooh while Finn and Jake and BMO and Susan were gone, so I like that. We then see what's on the card. It's pictures, and then we see it's a picture of little Marceline and her mother. So Marceline, she says, BMO, why don't you see the pictures, you tell me the story of what's going on. So it's great. We get Marceline's pictures plus BMO's narrative. We get a pretty good story. We still don't know what Marceline's mom's name is, but it was a good story. This episode it'd be bittersweet, but I liked it. I give it a 1.5 thumbs up. The next episode that happened was Cake and was called Fiona and Cake and Fiona. Oh boy, once again, Adventure Time is adhering to Ice King's Internet Rule 63. Whatever character exists, there is a opposite gender character that exists. Arrgh. So, Ice King be reading his latest fiction about Cake and Fiona when suddenly Fiona herself shows up with a VHS tape saying how the story really happened. So this episode is going to raise so many questions. Or at least that's what I thought until we... So, I don't want to say anything because it'll spoil it, but let's just say there are 2 major plot twists at the end of this episode. I thought it was alright, but... Alright. So, here comes one of the 2 major spoilery things. If you don't want to hear it, mute the sound until the text is gone. But overall, I'd say for this episode, I give it 1 thumb up. And here be me reason why. Alright. Okay, so this episode, we see the tape. And apparently it turns out that either Fiona and Cake was some either old TV show in the past, or the theory that I got is it's events happening in another dimension, and it's somehow being beamed into this dimension, because Ice King did say how at night the videos were beamed into his head, and that actually does happen. So yeah, I've seen this before where something from one dimension then makes itself manifest in another dimension. It's a good story work around, yeah. Yeah, I like this episode, but I think it could have done a little more. Kind of like with Abstract, they could have probably had Jake go through that stay in that form for like 2 more episodes or 3 episodes before finding a fix. This episode, it was great because, alright, I get it. This episode was very meta humor. It's the whole, we're aware of how we have all these fans and we're a show, and hey, let's make an episode where maybe 1,000 years from now or something, people will discover this and try to emulate it. And yes, the humor, the meta is not lost on me. I get the fact that I am doing a show that is reviewing and analyzing another show. I get the humor. It's funny, but, Alright, so we will now, so yeah. 3 episodes, and so far only 2, 1 thumbs up, and only 1.5 thumbs up. Can the last 2 episodes save us? Stay tuned. Let's hope so. Alright, now we get into the 4th episode. This episode would be called Whispers. In this episode, I liked it. Once again, dealing with multiple continuity. This episode dealt with multiple continuity. We see Finn and Fern just hanging out trying to do some fishing. Finn is just enjoying himself. But Fern, he is all down on himself because, well, Finn was gone. He was supposed to look over Ooh and turn into the mint candy person and drink all the sugary water stuff. He's depressed because he's trying to be Finn, but he can't emulate him. And then here comes Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea is very distraught, and Fern tries to suggests stopping him by severing his tendons. So yeah, Fern is not. He's like Diet Finn or Finn Light or. There'll be a saying I've heard: accept no substitutions. And Fern is definitely. He feels that way. He feels like he's just a placeholder, a substitution, not the same as Finn. Anyway, Sweet Pea is worried because he keeps hearing this monster whisper bad things to him. Now, what monster could this be? The Lich. So, how is this happening? Now, we have seen episodes where the Lich inside of him is either takes over partially or could be a factor. Lest we forget, Sweet Pea was at one point the Lich before getting healed. Now then, after the events of Elements, what is this monster thing that keeps whispering to him? Where did it come from? Is it a result from Elements? Maybe. But I do know this. After he was affected by the lumpy space, his second horn grew back in. So that was a factor I was a little weary of, trying to figure out how that would come into play. Anyway, during the night, Finn and Fern discover that that Sweet Pea is being whispered to by this evil-looking hand. The best explanation I could give is if you played The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, it's like a wall master. You know, it's one of those creepy hand things. Ugh. So anyway, and where does this hand come from? It came from when Finn and Jake had to go to Farm World and stop the Lich there. Unfortunately, the hand was sliced off and fell into the pool that would have opened to the multi-dimensions. So now we do have multiple Lich hands in multiple dimensions. So yeah, like I said, that falls back to the whole Cake and Fionna episode from Factor from the thing, yeah. There's a multi-dimensional thing there, so if you muted it, yeah, that's one of the factors of that episode, sorry. This episode was, yeah, so I like that thing. Yeah, okay. Alright. So, Fern is to guard the Lich. No, Fern is to guard. With the Lich hand there, he's actually somehow able to possess and control Sweet Pea a little bit. Finn goes after the hand while Fern guards Sweet Pea. The Lich is fully aware of the fact that he was defeated multiple times and plans to try to take over the kingdom yet again. And he will do it with his vessel, his son, Sweet Pea. And just when things look darkest for Finn, here comes Sweet Pea, and the Lich is like, ah, twin kings of ruin, we shall now rule. But this is the factor. Sweet Pea, he decides that he wants to be good, that he is good, and that the Lich is just a naughty hand, and he vanquishes the Lich. Arr. I think this is interesting because Sweet Pea, he may still retain some of the Lich traits because he was able to be possessed, but I think because he is consciously trying to be good and was raised good, I think it's the whole balancing out act between, since the Lich was evil and death, and he is raised good, and he was actually, given the healing stuff, so life. Also, there'd be some factor about the whole, you can't have two of the same thing. Let's see how to explain this. If you watch Futurama, there's the whole factor of you can't have the two people from the same universe, or some factor of that exist at the same time in the same universe. So we got rid of one Lich, but who knows, he may still come back. At the end of the episode, Fern is really distraught because he couldn't even guard Sweet Pea. And here's what we get to see inside Fern. We still see Sword Finn is in there, but not the sword. And we still see the curse that is, of the grass blade. It's still running the show. I was trying to figure out how this... I think I remember saying something about seeing how this would play out, and it doesn't look like it's playing out too well, because Fern says there can only be one Finn. I give this episode a 1.5 thumbs up. Arr. And now, we move on to the last episode, 3 Buckets. Yeah. 3 Buckets? Seriously, that's the title? Okay. Alright. Well, Ketchup was pretty interesting because it was meant in in getting to know each other, but spelled in the food way. It was an interesting pairing between BMO and Marcy. Yeah, this show has been known to have some pretty weird titles that somehow represent in the episode. Anyway, ketchup. Fern Howe has this ability. He can look and sound like Finn. And so he decides, hey Finn, let's spend some time together and go explore this new dungeon I discovered. Fern, then, while on the way there, they do rock, paper, scissors. And Fern, first off, they do time for a whole bunch because they are, well, it is still Finn, but it's under the control of the curse. And then he loses that rock, paper, scissors, which continues to upset him. So he shows Finn this location. It's a hidden dungeon inside a ziggurat. So then he locks Finn in there, and he says, you've been Finn long enough, it be my turn now. And Finn so then he leaves. Finn is upset because he has abandonment issues, understandably. And then he says, I need air, and his hand turns into a fan. He then discovers there was a microphone on his hand and that it was blocked by dried ketchup. As you recall, he got the hand from when he fought Susan and got the mechanical one. And I was like, okay, I'm watching this and it's like, alright, so they put him in this scenario where he can't get out. How do we do this? Well, we haven't done too much with the mechanical hand, so plot device and insert since, blah blah blah. Kind of a cash-in, a little bit of a gimme, but seeing as how we didn't have access to this beforehand, but it works out. It works. Finn then has to go fight Fern, the knockoff Finn. So as he's fighting him, he's using a weed whacker function. Now, he is victorious in the fight, but there is a few things. First off, it disturbs him about the victory. Secondly, we no longer see the Finn sword, or little Finn from the Finn sword. So where did that go? Was it absorbed by the curse? Was it removed during the elements when he was turned into the mint? Or was it removed during the LSP purging of the lumpy particles? And here's where the episode gets really interesting. At the end, the cursed blade of grass is gathered up in a bucket. So there were 3 buckets in this episode. Finn used one to clean up the chicken coop. There was a second one in the dungeon where Finn was, and the third one is used by this mysterious looking gentleman wearing this purplish pink outfit. He has a G on his cloak, and it looks... I think we know who this is. Mute this real quick. Alright. I'm taking a guess here in the dark, but I'm guessing this might be Uncle Gumbald. Princess Bubblegum's uncle. Who knows how that'll be a factor in the future episodes. Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that I don't spoil anything for people who are fresh to this or haven't seen this yet. I give this episode a 1.5 up. This was very interesting, and direct continuity from the previous one. Overall, I'd be giving these 5 episodes. For this return week, I give it a 1.5 up. 3 really good episodes and 2 episodes that could have used a little work and tweaking. But not bad. Alright, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you for watching. Until next time, this be Captain Jeff reviewing and questioning Adventure Time. Saying thank you for watching, and as always, arrgh.